Today we are covering the presidencies of John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson. We're also going to look at domestic developments in the Deep South as far as the expansion of the Civil Rights Movement and the inclusion of Malcolm X and a more militant perspective on the Civil Rights Movement for the Black Panther Party. That being said, with John F. Kennedy, you have to understand, and obviously you've heard Nixon before. He's going to be one of our presidents. He defeated him in this campaign, but the major thing about this was this featured the first televised debates. Now, the important idea to understand with that, I mean, honestly, I don't know how many of you watched the most recent presidential debates, but this lets the populace finally really get a thorough understanding of who they're voting for. Outside of actually, reading the newspaper or reading a magazine article about the candidates, you kind of had to listen to the radio and take people's words. But now you're actually able to see, candidate A, candidate B engaging in their political philosophy and how they're going to execute the whole office of the presidency. Okay? Like FDR, he uses intellectuals in his cabinet. Okay? He's not just appointing his friends, he's appointing people to his cabinet that are going to represent the actual needs and have experience within the various departments that they will be in charge of. Okay? As in Truman's presidency, Congress is going to reject almost everything. Okay? So again, with this, we have a Democratic president, so we have a DP and an RC, Republican Congress. Now, to compare other Democratic and other presidencies as a whole, his president's going to be known and his campaign's going to be ran upon the new frontier. Why might frontier be a huge word in there? What's going on? You guys think? No? The new frontier. Places people have never gone before.
The moon.
The moon. The space race is heavily emphasized with JFK. Make sure you write that down. Space race is heavily emphasized. Because obviously we're engaged in the whole what versus who?
Soviet versus U.S.
The Cold War versus the Soviet Union. Very good. Okay? Anyways, following a representative of the programs that measured during his time period. So successes under his presidency. Okay, Housing Act of 1961. 5 million more for slum clearance. That being said, in only 20 years, we have over 8 billion total. Okay, so that's 5 billion more, 20 years of our political history. We've allocated $8 billion towards clearing the slums and giving people opportunity within the urban city centers. Minimum Wage Act, 1961, from $1 to $1.25. From 1938 to now, where we're looking at, we've increased over $1. Okay? That's a huge value. Amendments to Social Security, coverage for children of the unemployed, and increased payment to retirees. However, now we have a penalty. If you retire before 65, they reduce the amount of retirement you can claim from Social Security. The whole mindset there is to keep you engaged in the labor force within the United States. Keep you working, keep our economy prosperous before we start drawing from Social Security. Congress approved the Federal Pollution Control Act because, again, these urban city centers, we now have statistics that can be analyzed saying that our whole industrial period is actually destroying the environment. Okay? Because remember, you can't just instantly study the whole impact of, an event or a presidency 2 to 4 years after it occurred because you don't know everything yet. All right? History takes a little bit of time to evolve, to rise to fruition. Civil rights is still an exceptional issue during this time period. His brother rejected, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, the Justice Department sued in federal court protecting voting rights for Black Americans. So we have the people rising up, and still the government is somewhat hesitant to hear their calling. All right? The Freedom Riders, pictured here, the use of federal marshals to protect them who had been brutally attacked when they attempted to integrate interstate bus facilities. So you can see this is just all over the South, and this is affecting everyone. The Freedom Riders, obviously Rosa Parks, we have sit-in strikes in diners, we have the integration of public schools with the Little Rock Nine. It is just a mess. We have a very traditional and old school and mindset South that is hesitant for change. And again, the easiest example for that, if you're a sports fanatic, remember the Titans. Okay? Or what was the basketball movie?
Oh, Glory Road.
Glory Road, absolutely. Okay, that was North Texas versus Kentucky.
No, it was Texas Western versus Kentucky.
Texas Western versus Kentucky. Either way, a predominantly white school versus a predominantly black school, which was a huge issue at the time. You know, a lot of people felt that they shouldn't even been involved in that tournament as a whole. Okay? Continuing on, after the announcement of his support of the Voter Education Act, he was designed to protect and get individuals in the South involved. He said to JFK to Dr. Martin Luther King, "I may lose the election, but I do not care." What kind of leader is that?
A very good one.
The best one you can have in office. He does not care about his political career. He cares about the people he's representing. Okay, so you need to have this cause his approval rating to go way up. He doesn't care if he loses. He wants to ensure that the people he's representing, as all politicians should, are being represented thoroughly and receiving the rights that they're guaranteed. Okay? Black Korean War veteran, make sure you underline that as well, though. Because this guy it's not just any individual. This is a Korean War veteran. All right, James Meredith attempted to enroll in an all-white university in Mississippi. Again, location with the Civil Rights Movement. In Mississippi, was rejected by the order of the governor. Okay, your state's governor is trying to restrict individuals from attempting to enroll in white schools. That's Mississippi. Use of federal marshals to compel him to finally enroll. All right, violence erupts. 2 people were killed over this. Over an individual seeking higher education, 2 people will die. Okay? Again, paint the picture of the South here, how intense this issue is. 2 people will die. That's a heavy idea. Over 5,000 troops were needed to get him into the registrar's office to register for courses. That following year, Medgar Evers, the head of the NAACP, assassinated in his home. Okay? This is that time, if you ever watched the movie A Time to Kill, where you see churches being burned. You see upside-down crosses being burned in people's yards. Okay? To send a message. The KKK is huge right now as far as influencing people to think, white supremacy and pure white societies. Okay? Another person also did that, but it replaced white society with Aryan race, and now you have Adolf Hitler. Consider that. One slight change, and now look at the mess we have at home. If you want to take that perspective, it's dark, but it's applicable. Okay? 1963, George Wallace, presented to you here, a wonderful politician from the South, intended to accomplish what fellow governors in Arkansas and Mississippi, again, location, but with Alabama. This man will stand in the doorway at the University of Alabama, roll tide, that's what we're talking about here, and this is what you really need to consider. The University of Alabama Registrar's Office to not allow African American citizens to enter, to register for courses. He himself, the governor of this state, will stand in your doorway, basically with the perspective, thou shalt not enter this school to receive higher education because of the color of their skin. Then he's going to turn around and run for president. Okay? But again, think of the time period here. Okay? And the location. Now consider this. What would that school be like if it was still not allowing any other cultural group, any other race other than white?
It would be Division IV college.
It would be a very small school and not effective at all, for the most part, in athletics compared to how they've integrated in, obviously, national titles. Okay? Football. It's something to consider. Right? But this is how backwards they are in 1963 compared to now. Obviously now it's still somewhat tense, but it's accepting. Okay? Kennedy, careful of rioting, he outmaneuvers him and nationalizes the Alabama National Guard. So you can use your National Guard. The federal government's going to go ahead and come in and take control. Now we are now in control of your National Guard. So you're really commanding nothing at this point. That's brilliant on JFK's part. Okay, University of Alabama finally integrates that year under the leadership of Dr. King. Obviously a huge individual with the Civil Rights Movement. And moving forward, inspired by the positives they are receiving, the messages that are being sent, we have the I Have a Dream speech. Okay? Which obviously, if you've ever been to Washington, D.C., and you stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, you look outwards onto the reflecting pool, you can see the magnitude of that event. 200,000 people will attend this. From the video we watched yesterday, 200,000 people to support the cause of civil rights, or even human rights, if you want to take the most basic necessity of societal acceptance. 200,000 people. Unfortunately, during this time period, 3 months later, JFK is assassinated. Now, obviously, there's a great wealth of conspiracy involved with that. The grassy knoll, who was the shooter? Was this government imposed? Absolutely not. But some people have that perspective. Okay, was it put through by the Soviet Union? I don't know, because when we cover JFK's presidency as far as foreign policy, he has a lot of hiccups along the way. That's next chapter, though. All right. Nonetheless, Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson takes control. Okay, during his time period is known as the Great Society. So basically, I want you to have down all of those individuals. FDR was what?
New Deal.
The New Deal. Okay. Truman.
Fair deal?
Oh,
Fair deal. Very good. Okay. Eisenhower. Remember, it's going from Democrat to Republican. Time for change. Very good. JFK. New Frontier. Why?
Space race.
Emphasis on the space race, and then finally the Great Society. This is believed to be the greatest time period in U.S. history under the leadership of LBJ. Okay? Domestically, he sought to combat poverty, disease, inadequate education, and all these other things that are plaguing the issues that define American domestic policy. He's going to try to fix that. Approach appealed to the voting public. 61% of the popular vote. That is enormous. Okay? 61% of the popular vote. Even more so than FDR in any one of his 4 terms, as far as his elections. Okay? That's enormous. And obviously, studying the presidency of FDR with the New Deal legislation, effectiveness in World War II, the guy knew what he was doing. But Johnson will go forth with even more so. Reform program brought about the following. Economic Opportunity Act, $1 billion for the war on poverty. A lot of people were wondering, well, what does that actually do? Okay, how can you just combat poverty? What are you going to do? Well, we formed the Job Corps, okay? Vocational training and educational opportunities for the underprivileged. So you can almost look at schools similar to like Lenawee Votech were created and funded out of this, okay? The government understands some people are not bound for college. But they are interested in, say, something, like building and trades or heating and cooling. Okay, they're not bound for college, but they're good at what they do, their craft that they have. So that being said, we're going to create a vocational schooling system for those who are not destined for college, but would like additional training to better themselves in the future. That's the goal. Appalachian Regional Development Act. I've mentioned this before. If you've ever driven through West Virginia, some parts are heavily industrial. Others look heavily impoverished. Okay, our goal there is to get funds in there to help the Appalachian Mountains, the remote regions of that, okay, to develop themselves into mainstream society. Elementary and Secondary School Act, extensive financial aid to public and parochial schools. Meaning, we've determined X amount of dollar per student based on population, so the larger the school, the more the money, but again, the larger the school, the higher the operating costs, so it does balance out. To help schools assist themselves. Now look at this. Why are we concerned here, though? Why are we concerned with education? Because you've seen it several times now in the last couple days.
Because of the space race.
The space race, Soviet Union, very good. Okay? We don't want to fall behind these guys. Marked in red. We don't want to fall behind that communist nation that is consuming the Cold War that we are battling. Okay? Oversaw the creation of 2 cabinet-level agencies, Housing and Urban Development and Transportation. Has anyone ever traveling down, Clinton, there used to be in Clinton, there might still be, traveling around Tecumseh, other villages, cities, and seen a house for sale that has a sign in it that says HUD?
I haven't, actually.
Okay? If you ever do, though, that's that department right there. For whatever reason, the house didn't survive sale on the main market, so it has been restructured for a very unique sale with the understanding that if you purchase it, you must improve upon it structurally. Okay? Does that make sense?
So you have to like fix it up.
You have to fix it up and make it able to be lived in,
I
either
think a
for
lot
your
of
own
people
use
do
or
that.
for resale. Yeah, well, that's where you see a lot of flippers.
Do they get it for
Like
cheap?
house
Yeah.
flipping.
Do they get it for cheap then?
It's
To
cheap
send it
price,
out?
yeah, absolutely.
Because they have to basically have to redo the house.
Because a lot of those houses have to be gutted entirely.
Cheap to do the necessities and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. And like, for example, some houses with the FHA that we covered the other day, those houses you can't purchase if they don't have running water or they don't have a heating unit. Here you can, because you can't live in it until it's inspected and approved by the state. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So basically, these are your flipping homes. If you ever watch those shows on TV.
Yeah, that's a cool show.
Yeah, I love those shows. Anyways, Department of Transportation oversees and coordinates national transportation policies. Why? What's going on at the time? Okay, state of the economy, anything. What do you guys think? Why are we emphasizing infrastructural development and maintaining that infrastructure?
Because
Pure-
people are buying more things such as cars, so then they need to improve the roads so that they can actually drive.
Absolutely. Consumerism is flying through the roof, so still write that down. Consumerism. Consumerism is increasing. In consumerism, we want the price of those items that you are all purchasing to remain low. Okay? Because if the price is low in reaction to transportation, you're still going to buy American. Does that make sense? This help with the Department of Transportation is going to help ward off foreign competition. Because obviously, we make this desk in Detroit versus the desk is made over in Paris. Okay, even including shipping across the Atlantic, maybe they can do it for $20 less. If you're struggling, you might choose the $20 less desk, even though it's not America. So the whole mindset here is if we keep transportation costs down, you continue to buy American. Continuing on, 2 constitutional amendments. 24th prohibited the use of a poll tax, and then the 25th meaning that the VP must step in if the chief executive is incapacitated. Obviously, that's in reaction to the JFK and LBJ situation. Okay, but now it's federally mandated. Okay, and then it was accepted that was and understood that that's what's going to happen. But now it's it's in our Constitution. This is going to happen now. Okay, should this occur? Continuing, Great Society. 2 crucial civil rights acts, 64 and voting rights of 65. Now, we've seen several of these. The dates are critical. So you will have to refresh those, especially when you study for the AP test. That being said, strengthen anti-segregation policies by withholding federal funds to states. If you do not comply with federal laws, the federal government will end payment to your state as being part of the union. You pull federal funds from state governments, you're going to suffer, no matter what. Okay, that's gonna impact education, protection, fire, infrastructure, all of those, military. It'll become ugly fast. Okay. Voting Rights Act 1965 forbade literacy tests under certain circumstances. Meaning, if you're believed, and this is their catch-all here, if we believe you may be a communist, they could impose one of these to restrict your participation in government. Okay? We're going to eliminate this unless it's absolutely necessary. So that run-of-the-mill, just John Smith, the standard citizen, is attempting to vote, they can't require that you take a literacy test before you vote. But if you have been marked and are believed to be, favoring communism, assisting the Soviet Union, or any other anti-American duty, they can make you take one of these. Okay? Dr. King gave these acts crucial federal protection for blacks seeking their exercise. Now, we know Dr. Martin Luther King is that more of a Mahatma Gandhi approach, the more peaceful approach to the civil rights movement. However, here we have a more militant version, Malcolm X. Now, you have to understand, what he's mainly calling for is racial separation and black nationalism, meaning pride in the fact that you are African American. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? But it's the approach, it's the method that is taken that makes these guys look a little bit, brutal, a little bit uncivilized, and unfortunately bad. Okay, don't mix them together. Their idea there is positive, but the method is sometimes flawed with the use of intimidation. Okay, the Black Panther Party, the Black Panthers is what we're going with here. Now, with this, you have to understand Malcolm X is going to go to prison. While in prison, he converts to Islam. He reemerges from prison with this mindset that what we have been calling for, black nationalism, pride in African Americanism, civil rights for these people, what they are calling for is just. But how they are going about it is flawed. To the point where he's going to become so open and almost peaceful that he's going to be assassinated by a member of his own group. So make sure you underline that. That's a heavy idea. Assassinated in 1964 by a member of his own group.
What group? The Black Panthers?
The Black Panthers. Okay?
Why did they assassinate him?
Because he was infringing upon the goals of their community and the mindset of upper members in the Black Panthers. Does that make sense? Okay. Bobby Seale, Huey Newton, Eldridge Cleaver continue on with the militant and use of harassment, but at the end, they mainly adjust and go with the defense to develop, from armed defense to development programs for African Americans in urban centers. So it is a happy end to the whole process here. Other groups experiencing discrimination, Puerto Ricans, Latinos, Latin Americans. Okay, Cesar Chavez is going to call for the rights of them, specifically within the agricultural realm, because many of those individuals are working in agriculture at the time. But he's going to go with Latino nationalism as well, rights to the Latinos. And then finally, in 1968, the end of LBJ's presidency, he steps down because of this. And when we cover this next chapter, you will see that this is going to be a headache for a lot of people. Not only presidents, but the populace, the acceptance of Vietnam War vets as they return. It's an ugly, ugly situation. Highly patriotic, and then there's a section of the United States that's highly pessimistic, saying that we did not need to be involved whatsoever. Really quick, we are going to watch this video about Governor George Wallace. It is a political interview as he is attempting to run for president. What I want you to know, and I'll post the video on Facebook separately, so I'm not going to actually screencast the video, but I want you guys to pay attention to how he reacts to the questions, how flustered he gets, and how many questions he actually answers. Okay? That's going to be a huge idea. Homework, don't worry about that. That was from last year. Just make sure that the Chapter 18 that is due for Monday. Field trip tomorrow. Make sure you bring money for food. We'll be leaving at 8:40, so meet me in the senior lounge between first and second hour.